Event Horizons on the Wake Up.
Mama, you gonna wake up the rest of the bitches.
Oh, check us out, y'all. Yeah.
Did you wake me up?
Yes, I woke you up.
On the Wake Up.
They don't want to hear that Malcolm X shit. Man, yes they do. They need that shit.
Now we give them a little something called a stay woke up.
On the Wake Up.
Wake up! Wake up!
We paying for water and shit.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Huh? Think, McFly, think. Wake up!
On the Wake Up.
Wake up! Wake up! Son, you're gonna have to use something a lot stronger than coffee. Let's make some wake up.
And we are live. Welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. This is Event Horizons. I'm your host, KB from KB Visions. My co-host, Ray from One Lucky DSM. What's up, Ray? How you doing? Ray? Did we already lose Ray? I think we already lost Ray. Ray dropped already. We haven't even started the show, and we have already lost Ray. So I'm going to introduce our guest tonight, and it is Dylan Lewis Monroe from Master Conspiracy, the Q Web, and the Q Map. Dylan, welcome back to our show. We are so excited to have you here. I can speak for Ray until he comes back. We're so excited to have you on the show tonight. Thank you so much for coming back. We're going to have a great show.
Thanks.
We are going to have a
back.
great
I know
show
we
tonight.
have a lot to discuss tonight, and a lot of both of our interests have been in the news recently. So,
Yes. So before we do that, I just want to make sure that, so we're going to put this out there. We do not consent to any interference. We do not consent to any negative energy. We do not consent to anything at all in a negative or a downward spiral way. We are putting out good energy as we already lost Ray. Welcome back, Ray. So we put that consent out there. It's already starting. Okay.
Right? Like, that's funny. I'm all standing here, you know, I'm rolling a joint, like waiting for the intro and everything, you know, doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, like, I look at my phone, I'm like, am I by myself? Like, what the fuck? So, but yes.
Oh my God.
I guess I missed it all.
Good show. Well, I was
Awesome.
just saying, what up, Ray? And then you were like, not there. I was like, Ray? I'm like, we already lost him. And then I got the message, Ray dropped. I was like, oh, let's do the consent. We do not consent. You know, let's get that out there. And today is the On the Wake Up Radio's official 1 year birthday. So
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
exciting. Yeah,
Dope.
This is fantastic. We want to thank Cindy Ashby, our producer, and Ra on the boards for holding it together. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Podcast, Google Play, and YouTube. And onthewakeupradio.com is a messenger, so if you want to talk to us during the show. And we are going to be talking about the cult of Baal. How do you say it properly?
Baal.
You know, other
Baal.
people, different people say it different ways. I say Baal, but I've heard people say it different ways.
Or here, yeah, let's say actually, like it's when, like Bay, right? Like Baal. Like we say it's Baal, you worship Baal, you pay Baal to get out of Baal. And then for short, it's actually Bay, right? So like the whole trend that just, the whole me and Bay, it's just me and Bay, right? And then it's always been that. Michael Bay, E Bay, down by the Bay, right? Do it for the Bay. It's always been.
You have all the ball references too. You know, football, basketball, all the professional sports are
Wanna
in
be
a way
a
another
baller,
more
shot
modern
caller.
form of worship.
Yep, yeah, it's all ball worship. It's all balls, and that's why it went from being a flat plane to being a ball. They say they literally wanted to worship a ball. And it's funny that. But it's this death cult that goes way deeper than that. But yeah, so let's get into it.
Let's do it. So I'm going to let you guys lead. I'm more of a student in here. Like, I know some stuff, but I'm a little more of a student. Where do you want to start, Dylan? Do you want to talk about the map, or do you want to talk about the Temple of Baal that's being installed everywhere? That's disturbing.
Yeah, I think maybe like leading into this with the Ark of Baal, which has been recreated since 2016. I think ISIS blew it up in Syria, and they, an institute called the Digital Archaeology Institute, made a 3D print of it out of marble, and they sort of assemble it like a big Lego structure. And they've been moving it around different major cities. Like, it was already in London, and it was in New York in 2016, during the election season, actually. And then just last weekend, they built the Arch of Baal on the National Mall, right in front of the Capitol building, and had a little ceremony. And it was a temporary, it was a temporary installation. It was only there from September 26th through 30th. So it's gone now, but, you know, the statement has been made. And that was during the Kavanaugh hearings, and it was also during Trump having a 5G summit in the White House, where lawmakers were basically, lawmakers and corporate people. Let me just read the headline of the article. To promote U.S. leadership, to promote U.S. leadership on 5G, officials call for government to step aside. And the subtitle, at the White House Summit on the Technology, elected officials pledged to partner with business to help move the country ahead of China and South Korea. So the only concern here is getting ahead of China and South Korea. There's no health concerns, especially not coming from the FCC's standpoint. So yeah, you have a lot going on in DC at the moment, and it just seems like things are moving really quickly. Possibly in a bad direction. So I'm a little bit worried. And it's pretty a crazy synchronicity that I'm basically just, these are my first, last night and tonight are my first two interviews about this Cult of Baal map. And I mean, I released it as a digital, I released it as a digital download in August. And so it's been out for a minute, but I'm also basically just finishing the posters for it as well. So at the same time as, you know, I'm releasing this artwork, to have them put the Ark of Baal in Washington, D.C. is basically the best possible confirmation I could ask for, to just let people know that this theory is most likely valid. It's a tough one for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah, that's the hard part, I think, for all of us. That when we get to the bottom of the rabbit hole, you look around and you're like, oh shit, there's some fucked up shit going on. Wait a minute, what? This is really it though. And so yeah, when you come out and you try to tell everybody, yeah, they're all Satanists and they all worship Baal, and they're like, who's Baal and what's Baal, and people look at you like you're psycho, like you're crazy. But yeah, it is this secret. That's sort of the weird thing too, though, that we're all like how you said, Dylan, it's the hard pill to swallow, that I Baal, that the Lord in the Bible is actually Baal. That's who they're talking about. And you know, so the Old Testament stuff, you know, it's like they're literally talking about Baal, like the burnt offerings that they give to him, and the burnt offerings to the Lord, and all these sacrifices and stuff. And then in the New Testament, they kind of brushed it up. Go for it, Katie.
The burnt offerings, are those the burnt children?
Into the fire or whatever it was. Okay. Or a lamb or whatever.
I can clarify that one a little bit. Proper Baal worship, like by the Phoenicians, did involve burning children, like at the altar of Baal, which was this bull-headed humanoid statue. And then what we're told is the original, like, Jewish history in the Bible, or actually I think it talks about more of the burnt offerings in sort of extra biblical sources like the Talmud. And they had something called Olah, which is a way of worshiping Yahweh that it's talked about a lot during Exodus even. Like, Yahweh basically required blood from the Hebrews during Exodus, like, to keep him happy, and blood and like slaughtering lambs just for Yahweh and burning them on this thing. And even the Ark of the Covenant had to be kept surrounded by these tents called the Tabernacle, and they would paint the blood of animals on the walls of this tent to appease their God. And so, I mean, this is what's in the Bible. This is the God that all Judeo-Christians are worshiping. And it's just, people don't think about it like that, but like if that's the history that they're acknowledging for their God, like what kind of an entity is this? If he's like part of the food chain, like demanding blood, it doesn't really seem like the sort of like benevolent, like grandfather with gray hair type God that most Christians idealize. It's a much different conception. So it's just to take in all the information that you're given about this entity. He comes out saying, "I am that I am," which is about the most ambiguous introduction that you could ask for. As opposed to like giving your name and stating your intentions. He's just, "I am that I am, follow me." And then they develop different ways of worshiping him. But like what you were saying, Ray, about that Yahweh is Baal, I'm still not completely sure about that.
We lost Ray again.
We lost Ray.
Well, I'm back.
Yeah. Oh, we're back.
Well, you're here.
Okay.
In terms of like Yahweh is Baal, I'm not sure about that. Like it's possible that
Yahweh
completely conflated, but there also is mention of Yahweh in the Bible, and then Baal is like the separate like negative deity that not
like
saying he's a real, but saying that the heretics are worshiping Baal in the Bible and they're worshiping Yahweh. But when you look at the history, it's actually the practice of worshiping Yahweh and Baal was very, very similar. And especially at the time, like people were basically, one culture or the other was worshiping one or the other. It just like was a difference between the name and not really any difference between the mode of worship.
Yeah.
Similar to religion.
I was going to say, it's one of those things where almost, like for a long time, people get confused with like, there's Jehovah, right? Elohim. And so all these old phrases, right? And then you kind of, for me, it was like, wait a minute, like if God is all being and all knowing, then he's the devil as well. If Jesus is, the Son of God, and then he's Lucifer as well. And that's sort of why I put up some of those, like that Bible verse of Revelation 22:16, where he says, Jesus is, I'm the morning star, I'm Venus. And, we know Lucifer is referenced as Venus as the morning star. And so it's one of those things where they left out the duality in the Bible. There was the white rabbi, and the black rabbi was like tired of having people ask questions. So he said, just follow the white rabbi. and like they just, like instead of there being the both paths, the right hand path, the left hand path, the light, the dark, the white rabbi, all of a sudden got flooded with everybody just wanting good vibes only, right? And so that's where the full-on or whatever it was just became just Jesus, and he became just good. And this darker side to everything else kind of stayed in the background, and it kept running the world, which was sort of the trick, the greatest trick that the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so like how you're saying, Dylan, yeah, how Christians think that the Bible and everything that they're worshiping is just all, something else completely different. And then you realize that it's the painting of Jesus is Sechouar Bourgeois, I always say that name wrong. It's completely a fairy tale almost, and that's where you gotta, a lot of people ask themselves like, what am I? What is this?
Who are we feeding the energy to? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every Sunday, passing that plate.
Every time something goes wrong. Every time. Yep.
Yeah.
Feeding the energy to it. Well, we really jumped in all the way. I mean, that's kind of like the deepest level of the cult of Baal that I usually beat around the bush for a long time, but you guys seem to be ready for like the honest, like full interpretation of it. So that's a great thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Give it to us, brother. Give it to us. So where is it? Well, how did the cult of Baal map start out versus the Q map? Right? Like what made you want to make it a whole nother map?
It started out. I had the Q map, and I was doing like a major update to sort of like the pre-20th century part of it. And I really didn't have very much knowledge of that whole period in terms of like conspiracy, like the alternate history, like that's different from what we've been taught in history books. And so I really wanted to trace back the belief system of the elite, because, like I said, when you hear in conspiracy world that the elite are satanic, a lot of people like laugh it off, and it's like I said, one of the hardest pills for people to swallow, especially newcomers into like the conspiracy realm. And so the point of this was to really trace back the belief system and trace the connections between different secret societies to find like basically the origin and then how it could have been transferred from one to the next. So that's the intention. And then a lot, I discovered a lot of other stuff along the way, like looking into the biblical history versus the historical record, and where those overlap and where like names have been changed, and what different theories are in regards to like who these biblical kings actually were, is something I looked into quite a bit.
You did an amazing job. I mean, this is so detailed and so cohesive. I have to say, not to interrupt you, but I like that on your page on Dillis Lewis Monroe on the Cult of Baal, you actually help people to understand it. You tell them that to go to your previous artwork to have a better understanding or overstanding until they come here, and you break it down in different bullet points for them, so that when they get to the actual map, it's not so, I mean, there's so much detail on here. It's just amazing. You really did an incredible job.
Well, so what I did first to help me with the QWeb was the Sephiroth map, which is basically the same thing as the Cult of Baal, but it only has information in we call them nodes, which are like the circles on the different points of this tree of life shape, that and the connections. And so I put out that Sephiroth map in, I think it was like May or so, to help, like when I finished that. And then I did the big update on the QWeb to the early sections. And then ever since I finished the Sephiroth map, I knew I wanted to do another more detailed map where I basically went into every node and gave you the bullet points about it, or it's even more, a little bit more descriptive than bullet points. So the way the Cult of Baal map is arranged is each one of those terms on the main structure corresponds to a term that is highlighted in bold in the margin. The stuff on the left is on the left, the stuff on the right is on the right, and then the stuff in the center is a little bit split between the two. So some of them might be a little bit tough to find, but every term on the main structure you'll find as a bold term in the margins, and then it gives you, as much as I could fit, a description about it, like the most important stuff to know about it. And there's also some stuff in the margins that's just addition, that's not necessarily directly from one of the bullet points on the main thing. But that's basically how the main thing is structured. And then at the bottom of the whole thing is something called the deity chart. It's sort of a separate diagram that has been lumped onto this one. And that just basically gives you the two primary masculine and feminine deities of basically this occult belief system, which are Lucifer and Satan. And then it tells you the different names that this deity has taken throughout different cultures. So for Lucifer, we have, it's a little confusing because Lucifer's thought of as more of a masculine god, but he is also considered the morning star, and that is Venus. So in a way, he falls into like a feminine archetype. So in that archetype, you've got Inanna, Ishtar, which are Sumerian, Isis, Egyptian, Aphrodite, Greek, and Venus, Roman. And then as the predecessors of Satan goes, you have Baal, Moloch, Set, and now I put Zeus and Jupiter, but you could also say Cronus and Saturn, whereas the Greek and Roman archetypes of Satan. It's a little bit of both. They had so many gods that they had like more than enough bases covered.
It's funny, well, I was gonna say I just made a post. Zeus in Spanish, you say "Hey Zeus," like "Hey Zeus, what's up?"
It sounds like Jesus, doesn't it?
It's hilarious. And it's too funny. Keep going, brother.
Well, then the third archetype, which is it got a little bit mushed on here. Like actually, when I just did the poster version, it's set up a little more clearly. But the third archetype was of like the son of these two deities as an archetype, and throughout history that we've got Horus in Egyptian, Dionysus Greek, Bacchus Roman, and Jesus within the Christian period. And, these aren't all like identical stories, but a lot of them have a similar myth behind their mythology. And, a lot of the stuff in Christian, this is like not going to be news to you guys, but like a lot of the stuff in the Bible is adapted from Sumerian and earlier stories and legends. So it's just basically showing, that's what the deity chart is showing. So that's the main thing, like how to read the map. And like you were saying, KB, like on my personal website, my portfolio website, I have a little essay about the cult of Baal on the top section that it's very blunt and very to the point and would definitely offend people that come in with strong Christianity beliefs or any religion really, any of the religions. But I just want to go through a couple of those points because I think you guys are obviously ready for it. And this was just what I wrote off the top of my head, kind of like what I felt was the summary of it after I had finished it. That number one, all three Abrahamic religions are based in Baalism, and the priests have created division to continue their human sacrifice rituals. That's one of the. I might skip around here a little bit. Gods follow common archetypes and are simply renamed from one culture to the next. Biblical history is a combination of Sumerian history and Egyptian pharaohs, with key aspects altered. The Torah possibly originated
Egyptian fairy tales. Pharaoh.
The Torah possibly originated in Babylon, not Israel, as a tool to control the indigenous Canaanites and erase their Egyptian history. Now that's kind of a theory I just came up with after having done this research. I mean, not many people will tell you that, but that's kind of like, after I did all this research and kind of understood like what I was like, well, how do they even know, if those biblical kings were actually Egyptian pharaohs? Like maybe the Torah first came to Israel when Cyrus the Great let the Jews supposedly return. So I'm saying maybe that the return was actually people coming from Babylon for the first time and saying, oh, like, where are your relatives from however many, it actually wasn't that long that they were in Babylonian captivity. I think it was only like maybe 60 years or so, but all those dates back then are a little bit washy. So
blurred, yeah.
And you got to also remember that a lot of people were illiterate back then, and that people didn't live as long either. So within 20 years, you might have a whole nother generation, and if they're illiterate too, people come in with a book saying, oh, your grandmother worshipped this book, like, you're going to fall for it. So that's kind of my own theory, but that's kind of my own theory. No, it's a good point.
I mean, it's very valid because people are easily, they follow my family type thing. They'll go along with it. So,
well, I mean, you got to keep in mind for 60% of this diagram, people were illiterate. So, like, whatever these elites wanted to do to, hoodwink the people, it would have been pretty easy without, having the internet or like not even being able to read a book or a newspaper.
Even with the internet, it's still pretty easy. For some people,
and that's a trick.
For most people, when
really is.
When they have the 5G, they'll just put it right into your head what they want you to think.
Yeah.
Fuck. Exactly. Oh my God.
That's so disturbing.
Let me describe that 5G bullet that's going to hit you in the head real quick, right? So, in that millimeter, right, 90 billion oscillations, right? 1 2 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 90 billion times back and forth, like literally a bullet hitting you with information. Yeah, that's why it's like it's that's going through your DNA, it's going through your body, it's going through everything. That's messing up all kinds of stuff. It's no wonder that it turns water on a right angle, and it literally stops the absorption rate of oxygen in the air at around 60 gigahertz. And so this system is going to operate all the way to 90 gigahertz, people. And so right now we're on megahertz, and so it's a huge
problem.
Yeah, big jump.
Just terrifying, yeah. And to think that these are the people in charge of it, is the cult of Baal basically running the whole system.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes it all the more scary.
But that
Exactly.
it's very scary, but it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense
Oh, yeah.
that it's for me, in my thought process, it's logical, that it would trace back to this, to the same type of people.
Yeah. Well, let me read a couple more of these points from the Cult of Baal essay at the top of the website. There's just a couple more that actually relates to what it starts getting into relating to 5G, because you'll see in a second. So the point 5 is Christianity and Catholicism in particular is centered on Janus, the two-faced Roman god of gods, representing the two-faced nature of the Vatican, which is Satanism at its core. Point 6, archons, the reincarnating priesthood, are keeping humanity in a dark age and preventing Atlantean technology from reemerging. They have created the monetary banking system to keep humanity enslaved. Now, archons, I'm not sure if your audience would be familiar with what archons are, because David Icke talks about them a lot. They basically come from Gnosticism, and it's sort of another word for demons, but people get a little more technical with archons in that, at least in modern times, people are saying archons are really related to like an AI, sort of like a disembodied AI. So like an entity that's disembodied and has zero empathy. And so that it relates to the 5G because, it just relates to the whole electrical grid and the development of AI and 5G, because it's like once we have 5G, it's basically that's a system that the archons would be very excited to have, because they could get into anyone's head. It's like we'll be inviting these like AI demons to invade our mind.
Yep. It's frightening.
Yeah, and
Scary.
that's hard for people to like realize that the whole thing that there is a realm outside of our realm that's right like overlaid over it, and we only see visible light, and that these interdimensional beings basically use us for energy and have basically set up, like how Dylan said, the priesthood reincarnates. For the longest time it's been the same people, and they've made a human farm, a people farm, an energy farm, and they extract our energy daily. Whether it's stress, you get all flared up, right? You get all mad or whatever, you get frustrated. Those little emotional act-ups feed these beings. It feeds a higher system, another energetical system, because energy, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't get destroyed. So since the bioelectricity comes off of you, well, where does it go, right? And that's sort of why I think like what Tesla knew is the ether, the soup that we're in, is sort of like what we call the Matrix. This thing, this whatever it is, this realm that we're in, that they use to power and feed themselves.
Indeed.
Yeah,
So-
we're here. I was listening.
Yeah,
I'm
completely.
yeah.
Completely. I think more and
I
more
agree.
people are hearing about archons lately, and maybe just the people that I'm talking to, but people are starting to take it a little bit more seriously. So just the last point on my little summary essay is that we have to learn about all religions to understand our reality, but not allow ourselves to be indoctrinated by them. And this is not atheism, because some people might look at this and say, I'm an atheist, like I'm trying to just say God is Satan, or maybe I'm a Satanist, but I think it's important to understand the mindset of the enemy and understand like what their religion is, and that they are the ones who have imposed a religion on us that is basically a huge farce, because if they're doing one thing and saying we should worship the same God, but they're worshiping the opposite God, it's just it's a bad situation.
That's sort of the thing I tell people. I say, you know what? It doesn't matter whether you or the devil. They do. And they've set all this whole thing up to trap you, to keep you, because that's what Satanists do. That's their little game, is to laugh at you. They're all going to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, when they start realizing, like, oh, wait a minute, like, it is a joke. They do mock us. They do laugh at us. Everything. When you flip everything,
They're interfering with you, Ray.
The archons are messing with you.
Yeah, when you flip everything around, you on your way to the truth. When it's side of everything, and you start to realize that our court
you gotta stop talking about archons.
Yeah, we can only hear every other word.
Yeah, they don't like it when you talk about them, and then they
crazy,
start
right?
messing with you. Yep.
So far,
happens all the time. It's really weird. It's like there's demons in the Matrix.
Yeah, you can pick it up. So we've been talking, and until Ray specifically went to pinpoint something, he could talk freely. Although he's been dropped a couple times, but he could talk freely. Yeah. The minute he's starting to really give you that information, and the interference comes in, it's not a coincidence. It's just kind of almost a verification of what we're talking about is very real. So I just wanted to throw that out there for our listeners. Like, it's not, we don't have a bad connection.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Confirmation.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? It's so wild how you can pinpoint when we talk about certain things. It starts to become static or blurred. Yes, our producer just said, yes, archons don't play that shit. And she also said that they were the warlords. Yeah. Yeah. So let's, this is probably a really good time. We'll take our break now, and then we'll come back and we'll just jump right back into it. You're listening to Event Horizons on the Wake Up Radio, and we have an amazing show for you, and we'll be right back after this break. And we are back. We're listening to Event Horizons on the Wake Up Radio, and our guest tonight is Dylan Lewis Monroe, Master Conspiracy, the Deep State Mapping Project, and the official Instagram for QMap and QWeb. I'm already mangling the words. So,
Dylan, we're going to start our music band. We're going to be called the Deep State Rapping Project.
You know what? I think every single person I talk to has a different name for the QWeb or the QMap or the Deep State Map. Or it's like I hear a new name for it every single day. So
what did I do?
It's funny because like during that intro, I heard that what song was it? And it just came to me. I was just laughing because it sounded like KB said the Deep State Rapping Project, and I was like, wait, did I just hear that? Or you know what? That'd be a great band for me and Dylan to start. KB, we're all the three of us. We're gonna start the Deep State Rapping Project.
Let's do it. We'll start rapping about Baal. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh,
right.
So we have our crystals.
McCain.
Everyone has their crystals, right? Oh my God.
Q.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, back to our map. So where do you wanna pick up where we were? Do you wanna come back? What do you wanna do? Dylan, it's all you. So you're sharing, we're following along.
I do want to just say a couple of disclaimers on here because, some people are triggered by this. I mean, I think our first section of the conversation would trigger probably the most, but, I do just want to say, first of all, that it's not a reinterpretation of the Kabbalah Tree of Life because the first time I shared this as the Sephiroth map, everyone jumped on me and was like, this is blasphemy to put all these like negative things in the Kabbalah Tree of Life, like this is supposed to be good. And to them, I say it's just inspired by the shape. It's not supposed to be a reinterpretation of whatever the original diagram meant. I mean, I've done a little bit of research on the actual original Sephiroth, but I have not, studied Kabbalah even myself. So I just know Kabbalah is on here, and that when I started laying out this information for the first time, like by pencil, I noticed that it was sort of starting from one point and then branching into like two columns that went down through history. And since it had to do with Kabbalah, I said, well, that might be cool if it's like the shape of a Kabbalah tree. And I'm so glad I did because it actually worked really well with the information and with the connection between the related nodes. And I mean, I had to force it a little bit to like fit into this shape to like make sense. Like, there was a few connections where it was like something was really obvious, like a really strong connection between these two. And then there was a few of them where I was like, had to do a little bit more research. But it makes sense, and everything I've written in between the nodes is either something that happened chronologically in between the two nodes or something that literally like connects the two nodes something that relates them to each other. So that's disclaimer one, is that it is a timeline. It's not the tree of life. It's a timeline that goes from history to modern USA. Disclaimer number two is that, the title of the artwork is The Cult of Baal, but I'm not saying that every single person in every single one of these societies is a Satanist. So that should be obvious to people that aren't coming into this with bias, but, I definitely get a lot of Masons who are really offended by having the caption Luciferianism near Masons.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten the blowback yet from it, but I'm sure I'll eventually hear some blowback about putting the caption Synagogue of Satan next to Judea, Second Temple period. But what it's saying is that this is basically the elite society, and within all of these societies, there's sort of either low-level people or even commoners within some of the civilizations. So this is saying that there has been an elite faction, maybe not even the entire elite, but like a dark faction within the elite, most likely the ruling party, the ones in control, like the highest level, that are following this belief system. So it's not everyone. No one gets butthurt about it. It's just this. It has been infiltrated, and on the highest level.
Oh yeah.
So those are my disclaimers. Yeah.
Good one.
Should we go?
Shape.
Yeah. It's like people are like, is that satanic? Like, is everything on here? You're saying it's satanic? I'm like, well, no, it's also history. So some of the stuff I've put in, I have Jesus Christ like on the right as part of just the historical timeline. Like, he's not on the main. Well, he actually is on the main thing. I have the JC like right in the center. But I'm not saying that he's Satan or whatever, like Lucifer. But it's just,
that's
he falls
me.
into this.
My bad, everybody.
Yeah. Well, you know what, right? He is actually right in between Satan and Lucifer, and in the little gaps between the lines there, right above the Vatican. If you're looking at it, I have JC, and then on the left is Lucifer, on the right is Satan. But yeah, and it's just like, if the Vatican decided to promote him, like, who was he even? And I've heard another theory even that Jesus, his memory was actually based on the life of someone named Apollonius of Tyana, who was also, he lived a very similar life to Jesus. He was let's see, what did I write here? A Gnostic philosopher. He definitely is said to have performed miracles, and he had a cult following. It was like a cult of love, basically. And I've heard some people say that his life was so similar to Jesus, and he lived at the same time period, that the name Jesus might have been slapped onto his cult later on. And I point out the fact that it's kind of odd that Jesus Christ has the same initials as Julius Caesar. So it seems like the fact that the Roman Empire decided to embrace this figure, and he had the same name as like the Roman Empire's founder, is a little bit suspicious that was his actual name.
Oh yeah, it is. For the name Joshua Christus to be back then, it's weird. I think that's why, like the whole like ayahuasca, Yahuwah, it's spelled the same, and both help you see.
Oh.
There's
Wait, now what's
there's
Yahuwah
a lot of
again? What's Yahuwah?
Isn't that Jesus? I thought that's who Yahweh was, or isn't it? I don't even know anymore. You know what I mean? Like, he's got so many names now.
There's a lot of names.
That's one. I said Joshua.
That is supposed to be like one of like the early names of Jesus, I think. Yeah, I don't have that on here. See, if I don't put it on here, I don't remember it. That's why I make these maps. Another one is that I had to clarify for myself on this map, but Jehovah is the Latinization of Yahweh. So, there was this deity Yahweh that might go all the way back into some Sumerian mythologies, and then when the Romans adopted him, they turned his name into Jehovah. It's just the Latinization of the same deity. So that's why it's really confusing. It's like, Jehovah came with the Romans, and it was Yahweh before. Now, I watched this movie called Solomon and Sheba. It's like this 1950s, like, really dramatic, biblical story, but like so Hollywood. And in that movie, they have like, you know, King Solomon and King David, and they're calling God Jehovah, and you know that makes no sense because back in that day, it would have been called Yahweh, and Jehovah, that terminology hadn't even been invented yet. At least as far as I know. I mean, I think I got this right, but it's confusing with all the different names, and that's kind of how they trick people too. It's like, you know, they have...
Yeah, they catch you in the morning on Saturday, they knock on your door, and they're like, hey, and you're like, wait, what? What's going on? What am I signing? No.
Yeah,
they get you.
A big part of this chart has been like looking at even just like the spelling similarities between different cultures of like similar entities, and like kind of figuring out, well, I'll just give you another example, is that the whole Catholic Church is based around St. Peter. Like, he was supposedly the first pope. I mean, at that point, he didn't have like the title pope, but he's kind of considered like the founder of the Catholic Church, St. Peter, okay? And there's a lot of logistical inconsistencies with that, because in the Bible, basically at the time, the Bible places St. Peter like nowhere near Rome. They say, I think he would have still been in the like Israel region. And so the fact that the Vatican claims he was a bishop in Rome at the time doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then you look at the fact that even the name St. Peter has gone back into a few different cultures as well. Like there was, there was a Roman god called Janus Patra, Patre, and that is the Roman god with the two faces that I think is sort of like central to this whole thing, that the Vatican sort of like has that be like their main god. It's like the trick of everyone with the two faces. Egyptian god called Ptah, Ptah. It's just, there's like really weird similarities. I mean, it's like, okay, so we had Ptah, and there was also Peter the Chaldean Hierophant, which I mean, that ain't Christianity, you know. But yeah, so this saint that the whole Vatican Church is based upon seems to have been sort of a combination of earlier deities and earlier religious figures as well.
And evil.
And evil, yeah, of course.
And evil. Like, so for our listeners, I'm not worried about offending you. I really don't care. This is the way it is. This is the reality. And it's evil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an evil institution.
They're rich. I mean, shit, right? That's how they've controlled everything forever. They're fucking rich, and they just buy everything and buy you out and kill you or
well,
kill
and
you
you know
don't.
how they're, like how I figure that they're this rich is that this all goes back to Egyptian wealth and the Valley of the Kings and all the wealth that was buried in the Valley of the Kings. When you look at the biblical kings and who they actually were, it seems that they might have been the 21st dynasty of Egypt, which was a class of priests that used to work in the Temple of Karnak for the pharaohs, and they sort of split off and started their own kingdom in this city called Tanis that was in far northern Egypt, actually very close to the Israel region. And there's one, you know, I read a lot of stuff about this, trying to figure out who these biblical kings were, and I ended up finding this one set of books by you know, I don't remember his name right now, but I have the bibliography on the Cult of Baal website. But he wrote like 3 different books about the biblical kings and their relation to different Egyptian pharaohs. And so that's where I got sort of the idea that these biblical kings were actually the 21st Egyptian dynasty in Tanis. And the other thing he was saying is that, like, through a really was that supposedly King Solomon had these quote-unquote gold mines where they were like super lucrative gold mines. And so around that same time period is when the Valley of the Kings was originally looted. And some of the leading theories about who actually looted them, I mean, I think mainstream archaeologists just say they got looted by looters. But what I've written here on the Cult of Baal map is that it was actually a state-sponsored looting. So these priests who have...
because who else would have done it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not like we can go loot a bunch of shit. The government will be like, nah. Right? Us first. And it's been like that forever. Whoever's got the biggest swords or biggest dudes or most biggest dudes with most swords takes all the gold.
Yeah, I just lost my train of thought, but
That's
so, yeah,
my
what
bad.
you don't. What?
The
What
state sponsored looting of the Valley of the Kings.
yeah,
that's a good one.
There's a theory that the priests of the Temple of Karnak, which is right across the river from the valley, the Valley of the Kings, that they sort of started institutionalizing a plan to like loot all these pharaohs' tombs that they had helped bury and take that treasure for themselves, and that might be how they sort of funded that 21st Egyptian dynasty in Tanis, and then that's what got renamed as the Biblical Kings. So it's like just saying that this whole power structure, at least that side of it, I mean, I think there's also that sort of evolved into like the Jewish side of the power structure. And I think there's also like a Christian side that developed through another faction of the Egyptians that continued to evolve. But yeah, so the whole Jewish side of the power structure might have originated from the looting of the Valley of the Kings.
Damn.
And then, yeah.
Right,
so
that one's deep. That's a good one. That's it.
Yeah. Egyptian history is really confusing because, you know, there are multiple dynasties at the same time. They're in different regions. They're moving regions. So, yeah, that group that was the 21st dynasty, I think, may have been actually the Hebrews. And they might have actually combined with this even earlier Egyptian dynasty called the Hyksos, who were originally known as foreign invaders, foreign rulers. And they brought a bunch of new innovations into Egypt. This was in like the 15th dynasty. They brought cavalry and chariots for the first time, and they worshipped, guess who? Baal.
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 Moloch. What would it have been at the time?
In Egyptian mythology, Baal corresponded to the god Set, because Baal was a storm god and Set was a storm god. And so when these foreign rulers came in worshiping Baal, the Egyptians were like, oh, they must be worshiping Set. So yeah, I think from, this has been really confusing with all the research. I couldn't even go through my thought process here, but apparently those people were driven out by the 18th dynasty, and they might have started this sort of like Israeli civilization, and then once those Karnak priests left for the 21st dynasty, they might have like joined the Hyksos and sort of combined forces to become what was known as like the Hebrews. So it's a very different story from Exodus and like the slaves like being set free.
Yeah, and it makes sense too because.
Go ahead, babe.
Someone pick it.
Oh no. I was going to say it would make sense that these groups that would team up together would be the nastiest, worst kind of people to team up first to take out the other groups first and to get ahead of everybody. That's sort of how that's how it would have to be, right? I mean, that's still how it is today.
So it's like instead of the slaves being set free, it's more like the Satanists were driven out, and then the priest class robbed all the gold and left and joined them.
Yeah.
But we love them, right?
Yeah. But pray to God and give us money.
Yeah.
Bring money every Sunday.
Maybe that's where it came from. Right?
Yeah.
The donation.
Well, so then I think I'm a little bit more unclear on then like what happened to the rest of the Egyptian, pharaoh structure. I know, because I'm trying to basically connect the pharaohs to Rome at that point, like for the Christian side of things. And the most interesting connection that I found, it's not the only connection, and I'm sure I could have dug even deeper, but so Cleopatra was the main connection I found between Egyptian pharaohs and the Roman Empire, because I think she was married to Julius. Well, there's multiple Cleopatras, okay? Like the one that was married to Julius Caesar was Cleopatra 7. So I know everyone's heard of Cleopatra, but kind of a lot of people don't really know like who she is
that
or whatever.
That was first to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Julius Caesar was married to Cleopatra VII. And if you look up Julius Caesar's Wikipedia page, part of his claim to fame was that he claimed he was from Venus's bloodline. And as we know, Venus is the morning star, and the morning star is Lucifer. So we have the founder of the Roman Empire saying that he is from Lucifer's bloodline and marrying Cleopatra of the Egypt. I mean, she is an Egyptian princess, obviously, or queen. So that's a pretty strong alliance, I would say. And it's probably not just that.
No, what did Cindy, we just got a little. So Cindy, she said, what did she say? Collecting souls and say what on the Cleopatra? I'm sorry, I was just trying to read what she was writing in.
Right.
Oh, here it is.
They were cloning back then. No, it's like she took the same name, right?
So is it possible
Sorry,
for me
what?
to think I had a past life as Cleopatra? Oh, that's what she was saying. Cindy.
Oh.
Our producer was writing in at the same time.
Maybe.
Sorry. Yeah. It's so where did she go from there? Like, where would have Cleopatra, who would have been her predecessor, or?
You know, I'm not sure. That's one of the connections that I think I've had a little bit of a harder time, like, completely sorting out the connection between Rome and ancient Egypt. But, you know, once Rome created the Vatican, it really seems like they were kind of, like, combining, like, that Hebrew side with, like, the pagan side to sort of, like, unite everyone under Christianity, when really both of them were practicing different forms of paganism.
Yeah.
I think Rome...
Something that I had researched that the Vatican created all religion, that it came from there. That it created Judaism and Catholicism, and at the same time. I have to find
Possibly.
where I got that. But it said that the Vatican actually had created it.
I don't know if that's possible, because there is a lot of documented history of this Judean Second Temple period. There's a whole thing that I had never even heard of called the Judean Wars, which was a book written by a Roman named Josephus Flavius that documents, you know, these Roman expeditions into the, I don't know what to call it. I guess you call it Judea, but it's Israel. You know, it's that region, Jerusalem. And, you know, you see in Rome the Arch of Titus, that huge arch in Rome, which shows Roman soldiers returning with, like, the loot from Jerusalem. And there's in stone carved, like, Romans carrying menorahs and stuff. And it's just, like, when you understand what this arch is showing, it's, like, kind of intense, like, from you know, understanding that this is a depiction of the Romans destroying what Christianity and Judaism worship, and it's, like, still up there as, like, kind of a triumph. But yeah, so there is a lot of documentation of the fact that there was this, you know, Judean religion in the Jewish religion in Judea. Sorry, the terms get really confusing. So just to clarify for everyone, okay, Judea is the region of what we can call Israel today. It's basically like a region, a country. For a while, it was actually a country. Like, the Jewish people had their own emperor for a while, but it was constantly being conquered by one side or the other. So, you know, it went from probably being Egypt to then being part of Babylon Empire after Nebuchadnezzar conquered. And then this Babylonian leader, Cyrus the Great, supposedly allowed Jews to return. And then they had their own kingdom for a little bit, and then they were conquered by the Romans. And for a while, they were a little bit autonomous under the Romans, but then the Romans just completely, like, wiped them out. And then from there, that region was taken over by the Islamic caliphs, and it became Palestine back in the first millennium. And that might have been orchestrated by the Vatican as well. Yeah.
I guess in a simple term, it's all basically the same thing. It's like just changing of the hands and the names throughout time.
Yeah, they've been fighting over the Tigris and the Euphrates River forever. Like, since the dawn of, right? Like why? That's one of those questions where, why is it this region that they want to just fight over so much? What is it about it? Anybody out there have a good
I know. I don't know.
Well, I think it
magical?
definitely has to do with metaphysical stuff. I mean, you could either say there's like high technology, some kind of like Stargate in the region, or maybe it's just sort of like more of like a higher dimensional Stargate, where these entities such as archons, or if you want to call them demons, can pass through the veil, shall we say, more easily, or where they're at least like they're more populated there, and they require more of a human sacrifice, and so they get into people's minds and drive them to do these things.
So I'm gonna bounce for 1 second on what you just said, because it totally sent me over here. So when you're saying the doorways, in my mind now it comes up to the present day. What we kind of started with was the ark to the Temple of Baal that they have been erecting everywhere. It kind of seems a little cohesive now, doesn't it? And in one of them, there was actually an entity that flew while they were filming it.
Yeah, in the London, when they opened it in London, someone made a video, and it looks like, but you never know. That could be someone playing with Adobe After Effects, but it's a little creepy.
It could be, but I have to say, from someone who's seen or had interactions with other dimensions, I'm not a skeptic. I think a lot of times, our initial thing is no, but I mean, let's think about what's going on. They're recreating the doorway to hell. I mean, pretty much, right? They're resurrecting the doorway to hell, right?
It's from the Temple of Baal, which is which is Satan. So they're rebuilding the doorway to the Temple of Satan in every important city, throughout the world, and it's just like, who's behind this?
Exactly. Like, come on, people, wake up. Yeah, right. Who's behind this? Like, this is so like, all of this is so fascinating, because it's we're going back, it's history and like, what we're learning and stuff. It's fascinating, but then when you realize that dots are connected to right now, we can just draw a line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's still going on. Like, this is still happening, and then just kind of the names are changed, and people are a little more naive, I think, to realize that the shit is really happening. Personally, I don't think ISIS destroyed the original one. I think that's a good point. That's a really good point. I don't think that they probably did at all.
Yeah. And if they did, it was on the order of the CIA, maybe just so that they could, have this exhibit that travels the world.
But
and I'm wondering, if
they're touching it to metaphysical, they're not going to destroy it.
Yeah, but, if they did, how did the Digital Institute of Archaeology get a 3D scan of it?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Like, did anyone ask that question?
Right.
They had already scanned it before ISIS blew it up.
Yeah, that's where it's like. Knew. Oh yeah, they always do it.
Built a 3D model based on photographs.
No,
but I mean, what they're bringing around is actually a 3D printed. It's like 3D printed marble.
Oh, yeah.
I think, or maybe it's actually like 3D carved marble, and it builds like a little Lego structure. So it's weird that it's not the actual thing. Like, I'm kind of skeptical. Like, well, I'm not skeptical, but I'm surprised.
Where's the real one, right?
That a recreation could have the same sort of energetic effect as the original, which obviously that's what they're trying to achieve. But I guess
no, exactly.
That's why it makes more sense, huh?
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's the whole point of masonry, right? That was isn't it? That the way you put stones in a certain way, and it creates a certain effect. That's why the pyramids are the pyramids, and why we're making little organ pyramids. Right? Everything. So stones, everything is a shape. Like if you're putting water into something, everything has its properties, right? And so maybe that's part of the metaphysical aspect to these shapes. Why is it that fucking people, you could draw a star on the ground and people freak out, right? And because there's something to this, and so everyone's always asked, well, what's the secret to masonry? Well, maybe, like I said, there's some other secrets that we aren't even asking questions to,
Probably.
Something else about
them in those ways.
Something else about this arch that I'm wondering is, I don't know if your viewers ever look it up, pull up Arch of Baal that's been touring the world. You see it's, the two columns, the top and an arch, but then it's missing the capstone, which is above the center of the arch. Now, what was there? Did that used to be I'm just going to go out here and guess that it was probably a horned, demon face.
That's what I thought too.
A horned
gremlin,
demon
a gargoyle
face
hanging on it. Yeah.
That is hanging in the Vatican right now, or who knows? Yeah, something really terrifying.
Some symbolism.
That identified this gate as being the gate of Bel's temple. And the only reason this is passing as passing publicly on display in the National Mall is the fact that piece is missing.
So we have a question from one of our listeners, and they said they wanted to know about portals. I mean, it very well could open a portal, especially if they know where the ley lines are, the grid lines, the energy lines, if they do any blood sacrifices, stuff like that. They could easily open a door, right?
Well, yeah, think about that dude,
right?
That video. Yes, exactly. The guy in his broom, KB, that video you sent me. Yeah. Where he opens up a portal in his bedroom, and you're looking through it hey, how did it? Could you really do that good of a an edit job, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I went through it in my head, no, wait a minute. The idea of sound and opening portals makes sense, and so this archway, right, and then them making some certain sound, some certain tone, and whatever, and then whoop, there it goes, opens up and that's the crazy part for people to like I said, some of these pills are hard to swallow, but it's these people are billionaires, trillionaires, and this is what they're doing. So this is the shit that they're chasing. It's we're just the storm chasers, and they're the storm.
As you're saying that, this, I guess, is probably maybe the duality. Why is it so easy for people to believe in well, I'm going to say a mythical god, right? Or whoever they pray to, whoever they were told to. Why is it easy for them to believe in that? Because it's good, right? Because they were told it's good. But they can't believe that evil or entities or anything else exists. What kind of naive way of thinking is that? Or single-minded? It's only good.
That's the Saturn Moon Matrix. That's exactly. They lock you in your left brain. They lock you in one type of thinking. And it's because the duality of it is you'd have to basically say, hey, wait a minute, is that right or wrong? And you're already emotionally attached to what you believe. And that's what causes cognitive dissonance, right? When you're a hardcore, meat eater, you do burgers 3 days, 3 times a day, a steak on Friday, right? And you see some vegan documentary and you're watching it and you're in your mind, you're either going to be start crying, damn, what am I doing? Or you're going to be nah, fuck it. I'm going to keep eating meat. It tastes great, right? And that's we create an emotional bias. And so they're polarized. And so that's sort of what they do. That's why they worship the cube. All Abrahamic religions, like you're saying, Dylan, are all the same thing. And it's all the cube in secret. They're all worshiping this black little box. And it's their representation of them keeping us in the box.
The Muslims are worshiping a big black box.
Yeah, exactly. A big black. It's all black boxes, right? Your TV, the screen in your hand. And that's where it's you really start looking at it oh, wait a minute. And you start seeing that the people that are really religious, that are really ritualistic, are very left-brained. And that's where the Saturn Moon Matrix really starts to make a lot of sense, that what's happening is a big old trick, is a big old game on us to keep us, we get indoctrinated in one way of thinking, and it sort of programs us. Exactly, can't get out of it, because you then have to. That's why flat Earth is so hard for people. Trump is a trigger word, right? All these certain things, you say them, and people are just rah, 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 rah. They lose their mind because they can't. They are either one, don't know that information exists. 2, can't let someone else have a different view, or 3, are just so hardcore in that mindset, in that way of thinking, that nothing else can be there, and so it causes literally pain in their minds, and that's cognitive dissonance. It's a
Yeah.
bitch.
I had put a conversation I had had with a friend of mine, and I wound up recording it. I kept calling him an NPC. I wound up recording it because he thought
An
process
NPC,
literally
non-player character.
getting higher.
You called him that to his
Yeah, I told him. It's on my video. I published it on my wall. There's an 8-minute on my IGTV, whatever it is, IGTV. And then I put a little clip of a conversation. I told him, actually, his name is
Gangster
Jay, so I've been
KB.
calling him JTV. I'm like, you're a non-player character. And I told him in the video, I go, you can love someone. I go, but he's a non-player character. He's never going to get any higher.
We've taken we've taken video
his
game
thought
shit talking to the streets. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because his thought process, like everything he kept saying, he's like, well, God and God. I can't. I said to him, are you magnificent? And he said, no. I said, how can you say you're not magnificent? He goes, I can't make a tree. I said, how do you know the tree's real? And everything kept coming back in a loop. Zoop, zoop. Like everything kept zoop. So after the one we published a little bit later, he kept talking. I said to him, I go, you have to stop talking. I go, because your brain doesn't go any higher and it's hurting my brain. I'm like, please stop because I'm going to walk away. And he's like, are you for real? I'm like, I'm really for real right now. But that's exactly what it is. And some people, their thought process is so stuck in something, and what they're stuck in is actually killing society, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in a nutshell.
The Christian arguments definitely always fall into basically like a self-fulfilling prophecy loop that, you know, they can argue their way out of any amount of data you put in front of them to justify their beliefs that they've been indoctrinated with.
Yeah, so no matter what, Jesus will always show up at the last second and save them all. That's what's gonna happen. And in that thinking, that's like so fucking scary. That like they'll literally let whatever evil fester until we're all consumed by it. That's the fucked up part. And so it's frustrating. I get it. I hear you.
So
thank you, Dylan,
little
for
story.
your map for free thinking.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's a little story that kind of goes with that, Ray, with that thinking process. It's kind of like there was a flood, right? We'll just say there was a flood, and this guy.
There was a flood.
He's like, yeah. Well, we'll say in modern terms, right? The water level's rising, and this guy goes to this guy's house, and he's like, "Buddy, come on, let's get out of here. You know, the water's rising." And he said, "No, God's gonna take care of me. He'll save me." Next one comes along, and it's a boat. He's like, "Buddy, come on, the water's getting high." He's like, Nah, God's gonna save me. Next is a chopper. He's on his roof. The guy's like, "Come on." He's like, "Nah, God's gonna save me." And the water comes up, and the guy's about to die. And he's like, "God, why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter."
Good one.
It was so on point, right?
Speaking of helicopters, hey Dylan, what do you think about Q posting about the moon?
About the moon landing?
Yeah.
You know,
speaking of helicopters,
I'm having a little bit of like a QAnon and a Trump crisis lately, because I'm not sure if I trust the plan or what's going on anymore, especially after this 5G meeting.
Yeah,
I was extremely disappointed on September 11th that, you know, nobody in the Bush administration was called out by QAnon. It's just like, you know, if we're not going to get justice on that one, like, I mean, that's an even bigger fish to fry than Hillary. I mean, I know Hillary and Obama are more recent, but, you know, we're talking about like emails versus 9/11. I'm not off the train yet, but I'm like, we need to be doing our own research, and we need to be pushing for, you know, what we want disclosed, and the agenda that is the right way to go, and not just blindly following QAnon.
Yeah, see, like the whole trust the plan thing.
It's a little creepy.
What's the plan, right? Yeah, and so, like, or here, let me throw this out, because you've heard of Michael Kavanaugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when he says that Hillary was picked up and executed for, you know, crimes of high treason, right? And then all of a sudden we have like and then talking about lizard fuckers and the reptilians and all of it, and that Earth isn't a space ball, and then all of a sudden we got Q, and then all of a sudden it's that oh yeah, the moon landings were real and stuff, but there's no footage, and so it's like, well, if it's high security, high level Q clearance people, then I was expecting, you know, a lot more of from that, especially from the whole thing, like the whole that there's programs outside of public knowledge. That alone should have inflamed every single person in America. The fact that there's something going on and we're paying for in our government that we don't know about, we don't have any accountability over, and that's literally a reason for all of us. That's treason right there. Our government has committed treason against all of us in having secret programs, black and white, simple as that. And so the whole point of this disclosure is sort of like them saying sorry. Is that sort of how I viewed it? But even then, it's not a big enough sorry for some of the stuff that's been going on, right? And so that's where it always leads me to, well,
it's going to work.
Exactly, yeah. That it's got to be, you know, like I said, they could give each and every one of us $1 million, and the defense budget would still be not even $1 billion cheaper. And but yet, you know, that's where they're still waging war against everybody. They're spending how much money? You know, there's 330 million, you know, estimated of us Americans, 350 if you want to be, and they're spending 700 billion, right? That's 3 times, right? That's $1 billion
and
for
then
each American.
I was a little bit optimistic with this new Space Force being introduced, even though I know you have different ideas about space, right? But you know, I was at least optimistic that it might lead to disclosures of technologies that they definitely have. But at the same time, I'm like, well, it might, but then it might also just be another huge, like, addition to the budget of the military, and, you know, we get something like NASA again. Like, we're not sure where it's going to go.
FASA.
Some secretive agency that they're not even telling us what's going on with it.
Exactly, and that's exactly right there. That you nailed it right there. There should be no secret agencies in a public institution. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what government is, and so, you know, exactly. It's all of this has gotten way so out of hand that like how the whole getting the average person caught up to speed, it's a nightmare. You know what I mean? It literally is. It's a logistical nightmare. It's an informational nightmare, which is why your maps, you know, help a lot in trying to explain like the secret history.
They do.
You know, because, you know, if we, you know, we want to talk about what happened in World War II, well, you know, we got to talk about what Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump, and why did they shoot 2,000 nukes up into the sky? All this other stuff that they don't talk about that we have to acknowledge. You know, there's all these other things that aren't there, and that's sort of where I myself went through for years. I've been looking at all this stuff, following a lot of stuff, and I got to the point where it is just flat Earth. It really simply is that, because there's one big ass secret, right? And what's that one big ass secret holding the whole floodgate to all the other secrets? And so for me, like I said, when the Space Force was coming out, I was like, all right, sweet, let's see what they are finally going to say, because, you know, if the moon landings were fake, the Russians would have, you know, blown the whole lid off of it a long time ago, and they sort of have been. But then there's also, you know, the Russians saying, hey, yeah, no, there was stuff there when we all got there, you know, or that, like I said, like how the missions changed, where once they killed Kennedy, all of a sudden the Russians didn't trust America anymore. It wasn't no joint venture to the moon. It became America's going to go solo. And so, right, with the movie First Man coming out, I see all of this like a volcano. I'm like, oh my God, there's all this stuff. If you're paying attention, reading between the lines, you see that it's coming. There's this disclosure coming. There's whistleblowers here. There's whistleblowers there. There's all this stuff happening, and we sort of are getting we're coming to terms with it little by little, and then we get the Q post. It almost didn't even feel like it was him or it or them, right?
Yeah, it had a different energy.
Yeah, that day, I was asking people. I was like, "Well, are people like?" I was like, "So the trip code was hacked?" Like, like I thought someone else took over the account. But then, I mean, it's part of the Q record now. So, you know, in that one day, he said that the moon landings were real, that there's programs that the public doesn't know about, space programs basically, and that we are not alone, like in terms of ETs. So
And see, lot of talk.
Yeah, I mean,
I wanted to differ.
We aren't alone.
Said JFK. Michael Kavanaugh had a whole article he had put out talking about a lot of this stuff. In it, he said that JFK fakes his death in Dallas and goes into hiding, as a number of other people did too.
That's sort of because the way I look at that history is that in the 40s and 50s, like I said, they realized Antarctica was somewhere else. There was more land. There was other places, and the rich fucking split. They literally, all of them just bounced, because it's like, you know what we've all been looking for? We've all been looking for the good guys. Where are the fucking good guys anywhere, right? And that's sort of it, right. We all look around, and you all look. It's us. That's it. Because you're not going to find it in over there in the government or anything. They're all locked down. They're all controlled. They're all in on it. They're all in on it. In every government, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow. So like, you know, when we were talking about last week with Aurora about all the cloning and the robotoids and the other species that is here, that has always been here, sort of controlling things from the back. This is where like those deep conspiracies start to come to where it's like they're not conspiracies, because that's the bottom of the rabbit hole. That's where you're looking around. You're like, hey, wait. Am I really? It's really flat Earth. Like that's what the fuck. That's it. There's got to be more, you know. And it's the reptilians and all the other things. And so you start sifting through what's real and what's not. And it's like, oh snap, you know. There's all this reverse technology engineered from Roswell, and there's all this evidence that there have been things coming back and forth for our civilizations and every civilization all throughout history, all throughout time. Yep. And it's like that's where we're on the brink of all of this. And so like for me, like it's personally in 2013 when the Planck satellite data came back that we are in the center of our universe, right? Like that's what it proved, that we're on this axis of evil. All of a sudden, like the cosmology world flipped. They all lost their fucking heads. Everybody decided to ignore it. Michio Kaku says that quote. He's like, right now in cosmology, we're wrong by 1 to a trillion. You know, we're so fucking wrong. It's not even funny. And that's him saying that the whole spinning ball and we're going through all this infinite universe. No. Yeah. Cause they done fucked up, and the cosmic microwave background proves that we're geocentric, that we're in the center. We're in a very special spot. And like Max Spears comes out, and I love how he always said, he says, we're the gem. We're the anchor. Yeah. We're holding all this down.
We're the green eye.
And we're the heart. And and so, you know, like I said, so all these you read the stuff about the other species being here, you know, the reptilians, the other things, the saurians, you know, whatever you want to call them.
I wanna read a quote from Michael. Sorry, go ahead. I don't want to
go ahead. No, yeah, go. No, yeah, throw it in there.
It's a quote by Michael Kavanaugh, and on September 25th, he wrote, "Question: Is there Anunnaki Nephilim connection to the White House? Did you know almost all world leaders are either hybrids or clones? 13 Anunnaki bloodlines rule the beast 666 matrix by means of genetic engineering and top secret Monsanto technology," and that's in capital letters, meaning that the technology could bring a global collapse of the human, animal, and plant genomes. Cell towers, smartphones, Wi-Fi are all connected to the electrical scalar wave technology. Says, note, human chromosome is a geometric code that is holographic in nature, allowing remote control of biosystems through cell phone towers, smart technology, and 5G. He says, further note, a hologram is not an image, but a very special program regarding a single, I can't say the word, signal, thank you, oh my gosh, regarding a signal coming from interdimensional realm, which all humans call cyberspace. So he is, for people who don't know, Michael Kavanaugh is ex-CIA. He's a Freemason, Illuminati, and scriptwriter, Central Intelligence, National Security Division.
White hat.
And this is his take on where we are and what's happening.
Right, and there's
send that to me, KB.
Huh?
yeah, there's
Send that to me after the discussion.
Yeah, I will.
yeah.
Okay,
I love those
follow.
posts because there's so much in them. Like he loads them full of stuff, and unless you know, 100 years of the secret history of what's been going on, you're lost. You'll read that and be like, what the fuck is this guy even saying? What's he even talking about? Who is he? Da, 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 da. And but that's where some of this stuff still can't just be openly spoken about in general conversation. We like to think that we can just talk about the reptilians and whatever, and what might not be here or what might be here. But other people would look at that and they're like, and they have that polarization, that cognitive dissonance, and it causes trouble for us on our Instagram pages. Getting a straight out of it.
Just to jump back to something you were saying before about like who are the good guys in all this, that is a question some people are wondering. That is kind of part of the point of this Cult of Baal map is, when I did this deity chart at the bottom, having Lucifer on the left with his set of archetypes and Satan on the right with his set of archetypes, it's not exactly written on here, but pretty much Yahweh, like the Christian God, falls within that Baal archetype. And so, that's all there is this like Lucifer archetype and the Satan. Like, it's not like there's another deity chart with like the good God. Like, this is from my research, it's like, this is it. So like you were saying, we are the good guys. And what's even weirder about this, how I laid out this deity chart with Lucifer on the left and Satan on the right, is that earlier this year, I was online and I found this other map that was created, I think in the 90s, a little bit further back. It's called the New World Order Aquarian Age Chart by Peggy Cuddy. And it looks like a tree, and it has all these terms like it has a humanism in the roots, and then like neo-paganism on like the what do you call it, like the big trunk. But this chart, it has all these terms that basically is like I would call it New World Order like philosophy within like the leaves of the tree. And then at the very bottom of the tree, at the bottom of the root, it has the word naturalism. And then on the left is Lucifer, and on the right is Satan. So when I saw this, I was like, I mean, this isn't meant to be a deity chart, but to have like Lucifer and Satan pop up right in that exact same orientation for like a similar type of map, I was like, whoa. Like, I guess I might have been onto something, because
you get confirmation of it.
I read this whole map, so I didn't really know what to make of it when I first saw it. But from what I gathered from it, like my reading of it was that it's sort of like a pro New World Order, like all of their philosophies like rolled into one map. And so
Called again?
So it's called the New World Order Aquarian Age Chart by Peggy Cuddy, Cuddy.
Yeah, see, and that's
high
one of those.
resolution.
I didn't become like a vegetarian until I started looking into other stuff, like other ideas, other philosophies, because when you're raised in the church and stuff, it's like, oh, you eat food and you eat this and you eat that, and you do all this stuff that you don't question, you just do it. And it wasn't until I started questioning those things that I was like, wait, what are we doing? Why am I doing this? That I found like those different ideologies and stuff. And so, the idea that veganism comes from Satanists, it's one of those things where you're like, wait a minute, but and that's where like how when people, there's always that clip of that guy. He's like, Lucifer is, an angel of light, and he's virtuous and wholesome, and well, it's like, the other side looks at their side as the good side, right? And the other side as the bad side. And so even in that, they're both sides are looking at each other as bad from the start. So it's like like how you're saying, Dylan, where are the good guys? Yeah,
they know.
Yeah.
They totally know. What is the 7 rays? I just pulled up this map. What is the 7 rays? Does anybody know?
That's on the New Age map?
Yeah, I didn't know if anyone knew what that actually was.
Where does it say 7
Has
rays?
harmony on one side, unity, and then it says 7 rays in the middle. Is that you, Ray? Are you the 7 rays?
Right? Am I cloned?
Cannot confirm or deny.
Gosh. That yeah,
it might say on the page too. It might say on the back of that chart, but yeah,
okay.
It's a little bit confusing. It's kind of like Masonic, like New World Order philosophy. This chart.
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah, so then the idea that the New World Order wants to take away all animals from all people. You look at that and you're like, whoa.
Why? Why do they want to do that?
Well, that's the whole goal of veganism, right? That's the goal of veganism, to not have anybody eat any animals or any animal products.
Oh, I thought you meant taking away like pets. I was like, what do you mean?
Oh no, well no, like that's
so it's a species.
And slowly by sure, like that's sort of how it's happening. Like I mean, there's only animal agriculture in, what developed nations. Why aren't they? Why is it that they always show us pictures of people in Africa and they're starving? Or why is only our country allowed to do what it's doing? Why aren't they doing stuff like that, right? Why haven't they developed?
Mm-hmm. Wait, so then are you saying you're vegan, or that the vegan is a New World Order agenda?
No, well, okay, here's a conversation I had with my friend who was a vegan for about 7 years, right? And he started to realize that that's what the New World Order, was pushing towards, right? Like that in some of the agendas, in Agenda 21 and in 2030, the whole sustainability and all that stuff was to basically it's to take it away from everybody. How the Patriot Act took away all of our rights. That's basically like Agenda 21, the United Nations doing that under the guise of quote unquote being green and being good for the environment, because we have to quote unquote save the earth, right? We have to protect the earth, and it's that's where the propaganda is, right? Like this whole climate science, is it, are we really heating it up? And then it's but there's geoengineering, and so, like I said, I got to the point where I had to say, you know what? It's all lies. Everything they're pumping, everything they're pushing is all bullshit. Literally, I'm gonna go 180 degrees, everything.
Yeah.
Everything they teach, say, and do, and I'm gonna rebel that fucking hard, because in that rebellion, then maybe you'll start to see, people will see oh shit, we need to rebel everything, because the whole system is set up by Baal. That's the whole thing, because these people worship this deity, and like I said, even to the play on words, that it's all Baal. You pay Baal to get out of jail. And it's all neurological programming, neurolinguistics. The English language is basically a trap. Your tongue, language, I always break it down, even though I know the etymology is fucked up. But English to me sounds like tongue leash. It's a leash for your tongue, because it takes away. It takes away all these different things that you could say, think, or do in a different language, because our ideas, we learn them in the language that we learn them. And so that's the whole difference between Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy, that if you grow up learning the way that they learn, obviously it's a different culture, but for us, we're the way we are because of English.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is.
And our thoughts have been, like how that lady says, we are the weekend, we wait for the weekend. You're awake at a wait. A good morning. Your morning awake at a wait.
I won't let people say that to me anymore.
Yeah, they're all spells.
I won't let
it's
them
all
say
spells.
Good morning to me anymore. I'm like, don't say that to me. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm
Wait,
like, don't
why?
say it.
What is it? What are you saying?
Good morning.
What's the breakdown?
Good morning. It's morning.
Oh,
as in morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, morning death, right?
Like morning.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
My mother always says, she's like, you're so analytical. I'm like, well, yeah, because words mean something. My whole life. You're so analytical. The words have a meaning.
The spelling is a spell.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a little quote I made, and it's the words you speak are the captors you seek. And it's so true. Because what we say is what's imprisoning us. We have a couple of questions from our Mixler. So, Francisco, Michael Kavanaugh, he said he can't find Michael Kavanaugh quotes, only on my account. So you have to look him up, Michael Kavanaugh, CIA. and you might be able to find him that way. And it's AGH. There's no U in his name, but he is on Facebook. And then how can we wake up people on transgender? And then people will be willing to lift the veil. People willing to lift the veil never broke, right? You guys, how to prepare yourselves. So you guys want to jump on any of those? All right. So, all right, let's start.
It's very diverse topics. Very diverse topics.
Yeah, they're all over the place. So I think how you're going to prepare yourself is through knowledge.
You know what that feels like to me? That feels like we've been cooking a turkey dinner on like a show, and people are calling in like, "Hey, what temperature do I cook the ground beef at?"
So how long do you keep it in the oven?
Yeah.
You know, I think the waking up, or I don't usually use the term waking up. I like kind of the term knowledge, becoming aware. I don't know, being able to see something. I think that once people start seeing or waking up to what is really going on, that everything starts to fall into place. You don't have to specifically say, look at this or look at this, that you start to see there's a cohesive thread between all of it. All of it is together. You can point over here, but it's still over there. And you can point over here, but it's still over here. And if Baal wasn't, so what, he had both parts, right? Male and female parts and a goat head. Is that the correct?
I think that's just the goat of Mendes. That's just the goat of Mendes.
Yeah.
Baphomet.
That's sort of another reinterpretation of the archetype. It's definitely on the same vein. I mean, Christians consider them all Satan, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. See. Okay. Here, actually, you know what? Let me throw this in right here because it fits with that trans question. Because the whole idea of trans, right? Transhuman, transgender, they're all like that. They're all either have surgeries or you know, like that's why guess genes is guess genes. Like guess what I am. Like the whole thing with Michelle Obama, Michael LaVaughn Robinson. You know, you would have never have guessed that she was a man unless you looked at the skeletal structure of men and women and realized that her shoulders are broader than her husband's.
And her belly.
And
well, she has a hoo-hoo in a video dancing. Let's just say she's got a ding-a-ling ding.
Right, there's all these things, yeah. And so the trans, like I said, they're all, that's their thing. There is depravity. They're all depraved. They're all, generations, for generation after generation after generation. And it's all, they've gone down the loop. And this technology, this technology that they keep on lockdown is sort of the secret of all secrets, right? And it's that the whole consciousness transference, you know, supercomputers that they use, and it's old technology. It's like the stuff that they would use in the pyramids to transfer consciousness. It's these black boxes that they worship and covet like none other. And it's really weird. Like I said, for me, it's hard to. It's not hard, but I see where it's now starting to. Conspiracies aren't conspiracies anymore. It's either you know the truth about the secret that they were trying to hide with the quote unquote conspiracy, or you still believe the quote unquote official story and believe that the conspiracy is just wacko stuff. And so that's the difference about being in the age of information versus the age of belief.
Point out one conspiracy that's been wrong. Like which one? Which one isn't true? Because they're all true. I mean, we can tell we have proof with them all, and now thanks to Dylan, we can link them all up.
There are some that are contradicting each other. So, like, not every conspiracy can be true. Like,
exactly.
Like the one that pops into my mind is AIDS, because there's a whole bunch of videos that have been produced that you can find on YouTube and stuff that are saying basically HIV doesn't exist. That it's just the AIDS is like symptom of recreational drug use. And after a lot of research I've done, I found that I think that's actually disinformation, that HIV is actually, I mean, I'm not saying I know it's a virus specifically, but I think whatever causes AIDS was developed by the government as a depopulation bioweapon.
Yeah, exactly.
it's part of this. There was a program called the Special Virus Cancer Program that ran that I think developed the HIV virus and many other cancer-causing viruses. And it's also part of something called MK Naomi, which was like the
Robert Gallo
side of bioweapons development. It's sort of at the exact same time as MK Ultra was going on. Like CIA was just throwing like MK on all their programs. But so yeah, like that's one where I think there's just information out there where, you know, it can't be like the HIV virus doesn't exist, like you're not going to get sick, and at the same time it's a bioweapon. Like people actually do get sick, so I think it actually is a bioweapon. But I do think they also have a cure. Like the whole like effort to like find the cure for it is complete bullshit, because they've had the cure since they deployed it, because they wouldn't have deployed it if they didn't have a cure that they could use for themselves. So it's like there can be a lot of levels of misinformation and disinformation, and
that's
you gotta use
that's the duality. Yep. Oh yeah, hell yeah.
And you gotta be ready to like throw out a theory when you find contradicting evidence. You know, like I mean, even just on 9/11, like I shared a video of World Trade Center 7 collapsing that had like really obvious flashes and like bang noises.
Yeah.
And I found out on 9/12, this year, like a few weeks ago, it was a hoax video. Yeah, like someone had used After Effects, and like they like think they're so smart. They're like, oh, the conspiracy theorists are so stupid. I'm like, well, no, like I'm just not assuming someone's fucking like using After Effects to like prove 9/11 isn't a conspiracy.
You know what?
So
I'd say, it got people looking. So
you know, on 9/12, I issued like a retraction on Instagram. I was like, that video is fake. Like, but there's plenty of other evidence, you know. So yeah, just you know, if you get duped, like, don't be afraid to admit it.
We have from producer Cindy. She says she's agreed. Ebola, HIV, cancer are all man-made madness, biological warfare. And then the other is Magic Johnson, your poster boy, which until I just saw this flash on my screen, I never really thought about it in the terms of Johnson, the part, you know, and now it makes sense. Like Magic Johnson, he had HIV AIDS, and now he's cured. Kind of interesting. Another play on words,
go,
right?
KB. Now you got the eyes to see. You're seeing the stuff. It's all a joke. George
We're
Bush,
really breaking the spell
Dick
tonight. Cheney,
right? Yeah. That's all they do. It's like the whole thing about nukes, right? Like, why did they build Nagasaki and Hiroshima back right over the city if there's all that radiation for, you know, how long there's supposed to be radiation for? How do they film it without the EMP bursting the camera? See, there's all these things, and that's sort of where I thought why Trump had pulled North Korea into negotiations, because he's like, hey, nukes don't exist, little Kim. You know, I know it, you know it. It's all a show. You know, just stop doing what you're doing. Like, and it's almost like that's sort of the deep state trick for all of us, right? Like we all saw something, but we all really didn't know what we were really seeing. And like I said, that other half of it, where like nuclear weapons not existing, it's all a big joke. They're just like, you know, what are we gonna do? Okay, so let's you know, it's like they made a bunch of private land, right? And they're like, oh, we'll open it up when we need it, or when it's time for it, or you know, it's like Disneyland, right? This whole place is literally like Disneyland. Yeah, and that's sort of why Disney, like, they all fucking love him, because he gave them the idea of, he's like, just fucking trick everybody into believing everything's all imagination, and it's a small, after all, world. Why would he have founded NASA? You know, Werner von Braun, all of it. It's all cameras.
It's the Magic Kingdom.
Right?
Yeah.
Magic Kingdom with the arch. Yep. So
an important point about the whole cult of Baal is that. Oh, sorry. What?
No, go right ahead. That's okay. Go.
Oh, I was just going to say, important point about the cult of Baal is that, like, this witchcraft and magic is very important to them, and that they are the experts of it, and that they've mastered witchcraft and magic on, like, the real level, and that's part of how they've stayed in power. And it goes all the way, like, some of the earliest examples that are on this diagram is, like, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Keys of Solomon. Like, this is all part of the same cult that has, you know, done this research, and they understand it, and they're using it today, even in like modern advertising.
Yeah.
They understand all of this
yeah.
ancient magical research, and we're just taught that magic is imagination. It's just for Disney movies.
Yep.
When the elite are
They
sitting there like
stole
using magic in our
our
faces.
magic.
Yep.
Constantly.
They
Yep,
stole
exactly.
our magic and they use theirs against us. And that's why
Yep.
everybody needs to rediscover that they are motherfucking magic. I am not playing a
Magic's
game when
real,
I'm telling you
motherfucker.
this. You are fucking magic. And once you start reclaiming it, you can use your magic. And we can create a whole new place. But we got stolen. Our magic got taken away. We got hoodwinked into all of this bullshit. And I was just looking it up. It says, how many nuclear bombs have been detonated on Earth? Which is kind of a funny term just to say detonated on Earth, right? Like where else
Like
have they been
5,000.
detonated? Right?
It's
2048.
like 5,000. How many?
Yeah, so it has it breaks it down into different ways. Like
Oh,
some are
2048.
worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2048, and then 1,054 set off by America. No doubt, right? 748 by the Soviets, so it breaks down that way. So we'll just say, out of all of those, and there's no nuclear radiation, like there's none, do you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you...
Like the
how can you
cesium
stop-
going around the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then they had the big scare with Ebola. And not a lot of people know this. I don't even know with YouTube being so screwed up now that you can even find it. But there was an interview a couple of years ago, and this reporter, when Ebola was like so scary, you know, and he went over into Africa and he started interviewing them, and the people were laughing at him. And they're like, Ebola. And then they started literally, they had a piece of monkey meat and they started ripping it apart. Rah! And a piece flew on the reporter and he was like horrified, right? And they actually have a whole song about Ebola. So they have a song about Americans and laughing at us thinking that Ebola is a real thing. And it's like, Ebola, you think it's real. And it's this whole fucking song about it, making fun of us. It's just to show you, like, how
it's
fake
all
of this is.
all cameras. Because imagine they're all kicking it there, and then you see a bunch of Americans show up with cameras and shit, right? And they're like, "What are they doing? What are they doing?" Right? You can't go interfere. You can't go ask them questions. And so this is where our entire world is just bullshit, because the news and the police are like the kings and queens of old and the jesters of the court, and they're just like, oh, you can't say nothing and you can only say what we want you to say. And it's all an act. It's all fake. It's all fucking fake, people.
Yeah.
It's so hard, yeah.
Except for the evil that we're talking about in Dylan's mouth.
That's real. Yeah, that's real.
And that's the part
The evil that runs the world, that's real, yeah. And they've made everything fake, yep.
Yeah, that's the part they think is fake, and then they think all this other bullshit is real. Oh my god!
Yep, and they give us witch hunts. They give us witch chases. This whole Salem witch trial that's going on with Kavanaugh, the Me Too fucking screeching fucking Me Too. No, not you too. Nobody wanted to touch you.
I think the
you know,
was a setup, because I know some people who actually put their story out there and wrote Me Too, and I was like, oh, it hurt my heart. I was like, why?
Right.
You can't see like 10 steps ahead of that. Like that just puts you in a box somewhere. Just like all of them.
Yeah, you just told everybody you're
Categorize
fucked up. Yep. You just pigeonholed yourself. Exactly. Yeah.
Here's one. You know, how many little category boxes can you fit into in this AI system of insanity? So thank you for your map, because this is the only thing that we really do have to connect all of the dots. It's so crazy. Everyone thinks everything that's real is fake, because they can't wrap their head around the fact that, you know, if you take a look around, we're in fucking hell. In case no one noticed. 1 out of 2 women have cancer. 1 out of 3 men have cancer. Autism rate, blah, 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 blah. You go through a whole list of shit, right? And it's not getting better. And everyone's like, oh, prayers for this and prayers for that, and Jesus is coming. No. You got to save yourself. Right? Everybody's just saying that.
Multiple.
Wake the fuck up.
Oh my God!
You just genocides, and people just ignore it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up a stone that says. Yeah, they do. Yeah, exactly. They act like it's every day at life. The genocide, the war that we're born into, the war camp, is just that. It's like, hey, we're off fighting wars and killing everybody. You guys just stay here and give us money and work on food and work on stuff to give us weapons to keep the world locked down. That's
Let
all
us
we're
go
doing.
But even in the USA, I mean, I don't know how it is where you guys are, but in where I am, like every hospital is just expanding so rapidly that it's like, I mean, these are going to be the death camps when we look back at them, because all these people dying of cancer and all these diseases that the elite have put, like, you know, engineered are. It's genocide, even in our own country.
Yeah.
And just because it's a cancer genocide, people don't understand.
That's why I don't trust the plan. That's why I want to fucking burn the plan. We're trying to light this whole motherfucker on fire, right? That's what I'm trying to do. But yeah,
well,
so that's where like, stay skeptical, people, but not too skeptical, because some stuff's real. Which is like, that's where it's hard to not turn your back, because it did start organically as military intelligence and you know, real stuff going down, and it's turned into who knows right now, right? That's sort of the thing. It's like we're all waiting for the future to prove the past.
But let's take a look at what's going on. So they have the Ark to the Temple of Baal they're resurrecting. They have cannibal restaurants that they're opening up. Now they have, I'm trying to find it where I just posted it. So,
they have a blood transfusion clinic.
Ambrosia by Peter Thiel.
Yep.
$8,000 a transfusion.
Fucking
in California.
What the fuck? I'm out of California. Fuck this state. Fuck this state.
Getting the fucking young blood. So they got
exactly.
They got cannibalistic restaurants. They got young blood. They're normalizing pedophilia. And you motherfuckers want to watch football?
Yeah, they do. They love it.
I was like, I don't need to be.
They love that shit.
Like,
they even play a game called fantasy football where they pretend they're the coaches.
Look at the Rams logo, and a lot of these different sports teams logos are like the most satanic bullhead. I mean, I'm not really into sports, but I see a lot of different sports logos where it's just like Satan is the logo of the team.
Yep, the star, right? It's all, everything's all, but it's given to us in the reverse of truth, and that's where they laugh at us, because we think it's like society, we think it's life, we think that this is all how it's supposed to be, but it's not, you know? It's weird.
I've never felt like this is how it's supposed to be. Maybe that's why, like, we're doing.
Lots
of the other people who are similar do what we do. Because this has never felt right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right.
We're here to change it.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
we're waiting.
It all has to change, all of it, and reclaim your magic. Like, why wouldn't you want to? I don't get that. We're all magic.
Yeah, like research some of these magical things like Hermeticism, Gnosticism, learn what the elites are doing against you. And I mean, I'm not saying like get into the dark arts yourselves, but just
knowledge is knowledge.
You'll find light ways to use some of the information.
Yeah, that's sort of,
doesn't it?
No,
you have to know. Means is knowledge.
Gnosis, Gnosis means knowledge.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
It's weird. No, exactly how you said, Dylan, that they use it against us. And I always use the example where they take your blood, you know, they prick your heel when you're born, and they do a binding spell, or they put it on a certificate, your birth certificate. You're bonded. You know what I mean? It's literally your stock and bond. It's no different than standing right there like a dumbass, saying, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on." And it's a spell against us.
It can't feel right. Yeah. But it can't, you know, so many people, like, how many times, like, I can't stand when I see on Facebook, prayers for this one and prayers for that one. Well, of course we love these people, and of course we care for them, but what are you doing to show your love and to show that you care? Putting that on a social media page isn't going to do anything. It's really not.
Yeah.
Because your thought isn't there, your intentions aren't there, your focus isn't there, and your knowledge isn't there. It's not going to change anything.
What drives me the most crazy is the people who say that, you know, it's dishonoring the dead to question 9/11. It's like, no, I'm trying to avenge them and, like, find justice for them, you know? Even if even if they would have fallen for this trick if they were alive, you know, once the truth comes out, like, they would definitely have wanted to be, you know, avenged.
I tell them, go talk to the families that have started the movement. It was the families that started the truth for 9/11, wasn't it? Right? That's a lot of them,
Remember the
Yeah.
what was the woman? So there was one woman. So they all got money. There was a lot of families who got money. They got settlements, and this one woman decided she didn't want it because she knew it was something different. She went and visited with President Obama, and 4 days later she died in a plane crash.
Yeah. Beverly Eckert.
Yeah. Oh, Beverly Eckert. Yeah. Goddamn,
you know
memes
what?
are making us
Funny
fucking
story,
unstoppable.
When she got in that plane crash, that actually scared me off from researching conspiracies and being open about it for a number of years. Because I was like, at that point, I was running a group on Facebook that was called InfoWars. It wasn't the official InfoWars group because it was like back in the day, but I had a conspiracy group that had like 1,000 members and like it was doing really well. And after that plane crash, I like retracted into like the closet of the conspiracy world again, deleted all the pictures, and I like left the group, and I was like, oh shit, like Bush is coming after the truthers now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're all targeted.
Yeah.
And but see, that's the thing where the weapons that they use don't work on us if you're actually literally. That's fucking hilarious. That if we're vibrating higher, your energy literally has to be at a different frequency. Yeah. And so if you're a targeted individual and you're experiencing electronic harassment, just stay inside for a day, relax. You know, have yourself like a fake birthday, and find a way to kind of find your happy place again, and forget about everything that's going on, and it'll all disappear because it'll no longer work. Anything that they're doing to electronically harass you will literally no longer work. And it's hard to say that that's as easy as it is, because I mean they're still going to surveil you, but the electronic harassment part of it, that part of it stops. And so that's something I found that works, that helped, and that was years ago. That's sort of when I started to speak out, was because I started to realize the scalar weaponry was being used, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
The gang
I think we all
stalking,
have that true heart that brought us here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gang stalking is no joke. It's one of those weird ones.
No, there's some people who suffer badly.
I'm surprised I haven't had any more of it. And actually, I'm going to a convention this week in Arizona called Disclosure Con that is
nice,
really
dude.
On,
yes.
alien disclosure and technology disclosure. So
I want to hear.
I'm going to be giving a speech there and having a booth. Yeah.
Film it.
I'm hoping there's not too many spooks there, like harassing or like keeping tabs.
Go check out.
They're gonna like gas the whole convention.
Yeah, check out. I want to hear Andrew Basiago from Project Pegasus.
Maybe you could drive.
I can't get away. I want to go, but
yeah,
if it's going to be uploaded on the internet, that's going to be a good one. Project Pegasus, that's one that ties all of the rest of this all together. All this time travel, the electrogravitic propulsion, the Philadelphia Project, some of the time projects. That dude, the stuff about Project Pegasus is just it's fucking mind blowing. It's out of this world, because he talks about how they reverse engineered the trip chair into being the quote unquote time travel machine, because the craft is like basically like a ball of light, like it turns into a ball of light, and so for them to have for us to use the technology for it, it's like they literally had to it's crazy, it's nuts. I'll let him explain it.
There should be some really good speakers there, and I think a lot of it will be streamed or posted on YouTube afterwards. I'm definitely planning to record my speeches. So
nice.
That's great. That's going to be so fun and intriguing, and that's great.
Yeah, well, it's my first convention as a vendor and a speaker, so it's a big step, and hopefully I'll be invited to more dimensions of disclosure, and there's another one. There's a few different metaphysical and conventions like that I think I would fit in at.
You're gonna do so great as a vendor. You're gonna nail it as a vendor.
Fire.
Yeah, you're gonna definitely do. And speaking of that, just so our listeners know, he sells a lot of stuff too with the map on it. He sells backpacks, he has leggings, he has t-shirts, he has a blanket. Because I was originally gonna get the poster, and I think it's in the cart. I was originally gonna get the poster, but you have a blanket, and I am going to get the blanket because I love the fact that I could just sit there and constantly look at the map and connect the dots to that. So to Deep State
It's
Mapping
really fun. It's actually a
Project.com.
towel. It's a towel that works on the beach. Yeah,
I thought it was kind of a quasi
deepstatemappingproject.com.
both, right? I'll use it.
It can be both. Yeah, it can totally be both.
Either way, that's the one I
And
want.
I just released the poster for the Sephiroth map last week, so that's brand new. And the poster for the Cult of Baal map is done. I just have to see a sample myself to approve like the coloration and stuff. And so that should be out by next week, the large poster of the Cult of Baal map, which is really how I intended people to see it, because the text is so small, it's almost too small for 8.5 by 11. But on the poster, it's going to be extra legible. And that should be out next week. And eventually there'll be some T-shirts of the Cult of Baal map, but there's already been T-shirts for the Sephiroth map for a while.
The stuff is great. Dylan, any closing? What do you want to leave with? What do you want to tell people? Tell them how to find you. Tell them how to get better.
Yeah. Well, my main platform is Instagram, where I am Master Conspiracy, at Master Conspiracy Instagram. And then my retail website is deepstatemappingproject.com. And from there is free downloads is the first thing, where you can download all the different maps right from the first page of the website. And then you can obviously shop there. But then if you click the info section, that will take you to the pages I've created for the different artworks that give you a much more detailed description of them, and then show you reference images and bibliography. So I definitely encourage people to explore that info tab, which actually links you to my personal website, dylanlewismonroe.com. But that's that's just a technicality. It's all kind of one system of information. So yeah, check it all out, and thanks for listening. Cult of Baal.
You're amazing.
Got to bring it down.
Yeah. Ray, what you got?
Everybody keep learning, keep digging, right? And like I said, let's get to the bottom of this, right? We all know what's sort of going on, at least at the very minimum, and we know that there is something big that they're hiding, and so let's all figure it out together, and so let's follow that compass. Say you.
Yeah. So I would like to say first, I want to, we have a big fan from Argentina, Francisco. I just wanted to say thank you for all the comments tonight. And he said, our light, it's true, it's real. And yes, it's very much true and real. Dylan, thank you so much for being on the show. What you have created both artistically and through your research and knowledge is just, it's excellence. I don't know how to say it. It really is excellence. Yeah, you have enabled people to open their eyes, because we can talk and talk and talk, and there are people until they see something. For whatever reason, they need to see it. And when they see it, they're like, oh, yeah, oh, look at that. And then they kind of open up a little more. And I think that you having that map, because I know when I post about it, people are like, who is it? Where do I find it? How do I get it? And I get more questions and comments like in reference to like that post than other posts. So there is that intrigue, and you have done an amazing job with that. And I'm grateful for that our paths have crossed, and we've had an opportunity to have these conversations too. I really appreciate it. Ray, you're always dope. We appreciate you, and you're always coming back after they knock you off the line. Thank you to Cindy Ashby, our producer. It's so funny because they send me messages as I'm trying to talk. I'm trying to do both. Ra holding it together on the boards. And you know what? For our listeners, your motherfucking magic. Find it. Discover it. Until next week, peace out.
Imperial Media Collective.
Cindy Ashby Productions.
On the wake up.